Welcome, everyone. It's always so great to see friends and meet new friends, and in this amazing thing we've always called Cars and Coffee, which we're so happy we get such a great turnout for. You know, Cars and Coffee started when we decided to open the museum up on Saturdays, something that we hadn't done up until about 2 years ago. And when we opened up on our very first Saturday, we didn't have a single person in the museum, just because nobody really knew what we were doing. All the other days were fine, but Saturday was kind of rough, and so a couple of the employees had their cool cars. So I said, bring them around front. We'll park the cool cars where people can see them, and maybe that'll draw some folks in. And so we did that, and we were kind of hanging out around front, and Clay Smith drove up, and he said, boy, we've got some customers with some cool cars. I said, well, actually, those are employees. We don't have any visitors at the museum today, which was really, really odd for us. And I think it was Clay that had the idea to start inviting people to bring their cool cars out, offer free donuts and coffee, and it's just kind of mushroomed from there. We try to make an event that doesn't have any rules, no limitations on what kind of car you can bring, just a real feel-good event where you can meet with friends and do what you want. What we've added to the scenario is having guest speakers come and talk here in Bill's Garage at every event, and it's been so much fun to have our friends with us, and today's no exception. We have one of my all-time favorites and a great friend to not only me but to the museum, Andy Leach, which I'm so grateful to introduce and ask some questions to today. He brought his wife Anna Lee and his whole family, and he's really our next door neighbor. He's located in Bennington, Nebraska, as many of you probably already know, and he builds some amazing cars. So with that, we don't really have a script. We just talk like a couple of car guys, and then later we're going to turn it out for questions if anyone has questions for Andy after we kind of talk through some slides that he provided. So without further ado, I'll just introduce Andy to all of you. So Andy, tell me about, we're going to talk about your history obviously, but tell me about the first time you came to the museum.
Yeah,
you might turn it up. See if anybody can hear you.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, good. The first time I came to the museum was probably at least 10, 12 years ago, at least. And you know how it is. Every time you come here, you guys got different stuff. So you walk in a room, it's completely different each time. And then I think one of the first times I did come was we saw that.
Turn it up a little bit. Okay. We can tune this thing up. Hang with me for a second. Try it now.
Check. That better?
All right.
So one of the first times I came is we were upstairs, I believe, on the second floor, and that's when we saw that cast little finned exhaust manifold. And
on the Hisso engine, yeah.
Yes, and that was one of my favorite things, and believe it or not, that was kind of the idea behind the little green Model A that we built for Ted Hubbard a couple years ago. And that fin theme kind of just carried throughout the car. So, yeah, first time here sparked a big idea, and there it went. So
I was happy to hear that. And, you know, when I found out that you found inspiration in the museum, that obviously got me really excited. But you find inspiration all over the place. I didn't realize that you'd studied graphic or art, commercial art. Is that correct?
Commercial art and graphic design. At Concordia and Seward.
Okay.
And cars is just another extension of that. So I graduated there in 2000 and took a graphic design job for 9 months, and that just wasn't my cup of tea. So sitting at a desk and doing that was not going to work. So back to cars it went.
Well, tell me a little bit about your history with cars, because was your family involved in cars?
My dad got me into cars. He always liked cars, and at an early age, I believe I was about 13 maybe, we were down here in Lincoln, and I think we were down here for the Cornhusker State Games, I believe it was, and we drove by a dealership, and there was a 34 Chevy sitting there, and lo and behold, he buys it, and that's kind of what started this whole thing. So which it's really cool, this 34 Chevy. This could go 100 different directions here, but the second I got home, I knew nothing about it, you know, other than he tells me it's a 34 Chevy, and then I automatically start learning, and he comes home from work, and the exhaust is all tore off of it, and he's like, what the heck are you doing? And I think we bought a polishing kit down here at this swap meet in Lincoln, and you know, I polished on that exhaust for like 3 months, and all summer, and put it back on, we start the car, and it looks exactly the same. So it was like, that was awesome. So, but what I found out later is one of my employees, Jim Carls, which Jeff works here at Speedway as well, their dad and them built that car.
Oh, wow.
So Jim works for me, and it's just kind of cool how it all tied back together. And
the car world's a pretty tight fraternity, isn't it?
It's a very small world.
So there had to be this changing moment, you know, when you went from just kind of being a hobbyist to what you're doing now, which is just full-blown, having your own shop. Walk us through a little bit of that, because you were a single dad for a while, and talk a little bit about the struggle, you know, trying to balance family, being a good dad, and then kind of where you're at today, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll back that up just a little bit before in 2003, I went to Troy's, Rad Rides by Troy, and I was there for about 5 years. Then moved back to be closer to my mom, which she's sitting right back there, so she's hiding now. And came back, and yeah, I was a single father raising my daughter, and I took a welding job to pay the bills, and would do car stuff on the side. So at night, I'd put Madison to bed and work down in the garage until I couldn't stay up anymore, and then it was on the 40, believe it or not. So,
sure.
Yeah, I'd work until I couldn't work no more, and then, you know, we'd get up, and she'd be the first one at daycare at 5:40. This older lady there was the first one there, and she'd meet me there at 5:45 a.m., and I'd drop her off, and my mom would help, and she'd be the last one picked up at, you know, 6:09 or something, you know, very last child there. It was terrible, but that's what we had to do to make ends meet, and I was working on the 40, and I had this email typed out to Ron Sizek, and I had it saved in my drafts forever, you know, and it was a deal where, hey, I'd really like to work on your car full time, but I was so scared of what he would say, because I didn't want to get rejected or whatnot, and one night I just hit send, and I'm like, oh no, what'd I just do? You know, this is a fork in the road right here. So literally like 30 seconds later, he's calling me on my cell phone. He says, that's the best email I've ever got. Meet me at 9:30 in Bennington.
Wow.
Okay. So I quit my job via text and didn't feel bad about it. Sorry, Martin, if you're here. But, and yeah, I just went to work working on the 40, and you know, it was pretty much the same thing. Dial it back a little bit, but I put all my effort into that 40, and yeah, then, well, this is my wife, Anna Lee, and our kids, my daughter, Madison, and she was a single mother with Skylar, which Skylar's back there. Skylar. He's pretending like, there he is. So our kids were best friends, and I lived up in the top of the circle, and her parents lived down at the bottom, and I knew who she was, and I played hard to get for many years, so. But eventually, talked her into going out on a date, and it was actually World of Wheels, Omaha. And she had no idea that I was into cars and whatnot, and it was, I believe it was 2014, wasn't it?
You told me you were a welder.
Yeah, I told her I was a welder. And, well,
That's awesome.
I weld, but, so, and we had the 40 down there. That was the year after it won the Riddler, and so I take her down there, and she's like, what is going on here? So it kind of just went from there. But,
So your world kind of exploded between the Riddler and a new relationship and all this stuff kind of happening all at once.
Yeah, she showed me that, you know, you don't have to work every second of the day. So, and, yep, balance it out. Yeah, and we have a beautiful family of 4 kids, and she has her own gig with selling houses and a team. What do you got, 3 on your team? And 2 more coming. So yeah, she's very busy. So it's definitely a balance. It's always go, go, go.
That's pretty cool. And I think this question is more for her, I guess, but just wondering what it's like to be involved in the whole car scene, because you're traveling a lot. You meet a lot of interesting people, obviously, and Andy, when we're all alone, he tells me you're kind of the boss. So I want to know a little bit more about that.
Well, it's...
She has 5 kids, really, if you count me. So.
It's fun to travel, you know, because we go to Nashville. I love Nashville. We go to California, which I have family, so, you know, we have an excuse to go out there more often than just vacations. But I've learned that we go to, you know, we travel all over, but then we're going to a parking lot and looking at the same cars that we saw in the other state. So I then take the kids and venture off, and I go touring while he stands in the parking lot. Here, I'll give you. But yeah, it's fun. We have fun.
This is the best interview I've ever done. I've got the whole family up here. It's awesome. I feel like I'm back at my house, which is cool. But this is a pretty cool picture I pulled up just a second ago. When would have this picture been taken? Is this pretty early?
This was probably 3-4 weeks into dating, probably. So, yeah.
She looks really happy. You look kind of unsure. I don't know.
I look scared.
I just like to call it like I see it. But here, hey, this is a little better.
That's better, yeah. She taught me that I can dress up. It doesn't always have to be a black T-shirt and jeans. So, that's in California. I can't remember which show we were at, but we always try to escape for a little bit, get away from cars for just a few minutes. But probably Del Mar, yeah.
Well, what I really love about you, Andy, and I can attest to this because Andy and I have worked on a few projects together, is you're such a humble guy, despite the success that you've had and some of the people that are kicking around your shop these days. It's just like talking to a friend, and you're very humble about what you've achieved and what you've accomplished. And tell me a little bit about how your life changed after the 40 Ford Coupe that you built. Obviously, winning the Riddler Award, that was, I think you said it in an interview earlier, that it was kind of like winning the Heisman Trophy, and what was that like?
Yeah, that's the only way I can describe it, I guess. We'll back that up just a little bit because we talked about this a little bit earlier. And, Ron had trust in me to start working on the 40. And I remember one day he came into the shop. It was a Monday afternoon, and I had this thing just cut in pieces. He comes in, and the only word he says is, "Whoa." And I go, "Uh-oh." And he goes, "No, keep going. Do whatever you're going to do." And then, he had a lot of trust in me, so we just kept going. And I put all my marbles into that bag. Not that it was going to be a Riddler winner, but just that would be the car that tried to launch a shop. And Ron backed me, and he said, I can clearly see this is what you want to do, so I'll help you. And obviously, Ron's a very successful businessman, so I just work on cars, and he kind of showed me the ropes of business and just gave me kind of dangled the little hook there and just let me go. And so we took that car to Detroit, and we had a bunch of basically rookies working on the car. Wow. And a funny story, Eric Hansen, he's not here, but he was my first employee. And some of you guys probably know Eric, but...
is he in this picture, Andy?
Yes, Eric is the one on the far left, right there. So
Model A lover, too, right?
He's just everything car in general lover. So he was my first employee, and I remember we went up to Charlie Hutton's because Charlie painted the car, and we wanted to put this piece of side trim on just to see what it would look like. And the clear buildup in the holes for the studs on the trim, it wouldn't fit on. So Eric grabs a rat tail file and tries to clean the hole, and what's it do? It goes right down the side of the car.
Oh, no.
And he's like, oh. So that was the last time Eric scratched a car. So but no, Eric is, as if any of you know him, he's the real deal. He's like my little brother, and there was a night when we were assembling the motor on the 40, and we lost the flywheel bolts for it, and a flathead, it's like, well, where are we going to get some of those? It's like tonight or tomorrow. He's like, oh, I got some on my nightstand, no big deal. So that's just Eric. If you know Eric, it's like you don't think twice. He sleeps in his bedroom with tires, and it's...
We bought a car, and he took the center console carpet out. Yeah. Put it in his window.
Yeah, each time we get a new project at the shop, he likes the smell of those old cars that have been sitting in fields and stuff, so he'll take and cut sections of the carpet out, and he puts it in his bedroom. So I don't think his wife approves of it, but that's just what he... So Eric's awesome.
Yeah, aside from you, Andy, he's like one of the most interesting visitors we have at the museum because he's a young guy, right? And I think that's the challenge we have at the museum is to, try to fire up the next generation about the hobby, old cars and street rods and race cars. And you've kind of found some of those guys. And tell me a little bit about the difficulty in doing that. Are you looking to grow the team? Or?
Yeah, well, we're always looking to grow. It's really hard to find people. It's basically we kind of have been tapping into a kind of a friend pool here, and we like guys with passion. If it's passion and thing, it's not a job, and they'll do whatever it takes. And a lot of these guys started off not really being fabricators or anything, but there the passion takes over, and there it goes. And even we got Nathan over here. Nathan just started as an intern, and he's a welder, and you ought to see him weld. So that's what we like right there. And it's a group. We're blessed to have a group of guys that they're all friends. They'll give each other crap, but at the end of the day, they're all friends. And then they go home and work on their car till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then they're back at together. Yeah. And then they're back in the morning, and it's like, don't you guys ever just take a break? And no, that's life. So, couldn't ask for anything better. Paul, the guy with the beard here in the center, found him out of Australia on Facebook, actually.
No way. That's great.
He reached out to me, and he's one of the most talented metal guys I've ever seen. At Troy's, we had some phenomenal guys. It was incredible. But then there's Paul, and he makes it look like he's not even doing anything. It's just, kind of like one of those, like an Olympic sprinter or something. They don't even look like they're running, but it's so smooth and graceful. And so each guy has their own little thing, and Tommy, who has the stocking cap on the far right, kind of in the back there. I met him at the welding job I was at. I was walking by him one day, and I had a Carhartt coat on that had Rad Rides on it, and he goes, "Where'd you get that at?" And I said, "Well, I used to work there." And he goes, "Really?" And then we've been like friends ever since. So
Oh, that's great.
Tommy teaches welding in Omaha and at Metro, and Nathan will probably tell you, he takes it very serious that if there's one little porosity spot or something's not perfect, he takes that helmet and he chucks it across the shop, and he's mad. But and that's just how passionate all the guys are. So.
I wonder about the process too. I know when I shake your hand, you're not just somebody that pushes pencils in the office. You're right there with the guys. You're doing the metal fabrication and all that right with them.
My true love is being in the shop, but unfortunately at times I have to be in the office, which isn't much fun, but it's just all part of it. So it's a gamble. From building the 40, we kind of steered off the deal at Detroit there, but I put all my marbles into that bag, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no clue. And I was like, man, either I'm going to get a job after that weekend or keep doing this. So that's probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done in my life. We sat up there in Detroit, and I was pretty confident in the car. Charlie was. And at the time, we had Bob Thrash working with us, and Bob knew what the car was as well. But you never know. The car show is all opinion. So as they came to that announcement, it's like it felt like it was like 3 days long or something, and I'm sitting there broke as a joke. I think I had $9 to my name, and I had no idea what was going to happen, and they announced it, and after they said 1944, from then on I don't remember what happened. It was just the whole weekend was a blur, and we eventually got back home here, and it was just all these people started calling. It's like, how did you guys get my number? I'm just some guy in Nebraska, but they started calling, and it's something that we hoped was kind of a walk turned into a sprint real quick. So
it was a big deal, and I love that story. You came to talk to our docents, our volunteers here at the museum, and I think you told that same story about having like $9 in your bank account, going to try to win the Riddler Award, and then it all kind of came true. I can't imagine the way that felt. And what happens after that? I mean, you get the phone calls, but what are the phone calls really about?
A lot of it was just, car show and magazine type stuff. And that first year in 2013, we had Ron bought a new dually, and we bought a trailer, and we put 60,000 miles on that dually that year.
Wow.
And it was just, thankfully my mom helped out a ton. She watched my daughter when I couldn't do it, and you even babysat Madison from time to time. And
She spent the night 3 nights in a row.
I was that dad, so. But
yeah, definitely a team effort and a family affair, and everybody chipping in. That's really important. I'm going to kind of drive forward here a little bit. As far as pictures on the screen, there's a pretty good looking Chevy up here, and I don't know if I have these cars in order as to when you built them, but tell me a little bit about the Chevy. Where does that fit in with the 40 Coupe? And
It's his favorite. I asked him one time if the house was on fire and this car was in the garage and I was asleep upstairs, you could only save one of us, which one would it be? And he goes, that would never happen. I go, okay, but if it did, that would never happen.
I told you I'd throw you over my shoulder and we'd go back the car out of the garage. So that's. But no, that car, we built that car for Randy Wilcox and finished it in 2015. And I don't know, that a 62 bubble top to me is my ultimate car. That's my dream car. And this is actually another bubble top that we're building right now. This was actually our car.
Oh, wow.
And then somebody decided they needed it more than I did. So it's kind of, as my dad always said, that was when two fools met. So
Yeah. Yeah, so there it is going down the road. That's a good-looking car. Tell me a little bit about some of the work you did on that car, because it doesn't look stock.
Yeah, that was, it sits on an Art Morrison chassis with coilovers. And the body itself, I always say it's kind of a sin to cut up a 62 bubble top because they're a good-looking car to begin with, but we pretty much cut it up and moved it all around. So the rockers were dropped a little bit just to cover up the Art Morrison frame. Took all the panels off the car, flattened the side of the car out, machined all the side trim. I have a good friend down here in Lincoln by the name of TJ Zessen. I don't think TJ's here, but TJ's been a big help in this as well, and he should be really in that picture. TJ is the one that cut the wheels for the 40 in his garage.
Wow.
He cut the headlight bezels for it. He cut the side trim for this, the door handles, all the tail lights. A lot of pieces that look stock, but they're not. So that was the car in Columbus, Ohio. I was too nervous to drive it, so I stuck Eric in it, and he autocrossed it.
He's getting right with it.
Yeah, he thinks it's the best thing ever. He gets to go beat the crap out of these cars. So that's.
I put his hair in a ponytail so it didn't get in the way. I had to put his hair in the ponytail. I taught him how to do that so he could drive without crashing into the cones.
This is another. It's so weird how it happened that the first car out was after the 40 was a 62 Bel Air bubble top or sport coupe, and then we're building another 62 Impala. And both, the bubble top now lives in California, and this car is a Southern California car as well. So this car we built for Howard Groff. He just wanted a really, really nice 62 Impala, and there's probably, that car is so reworked. Every square inch of that car is either made from scratch. The quarters made from scratch. New door skins were made from scratch. All the rocker trim was machined. All the taillights are machined. All the trunk trim, the side trim, everything was machined. But we wanted it to look stock, but just really, really refined.
Yeah.
I'm not a big guy that likes to take cars and cut them up and make them into something that they're not. Some real crazy, flashy thing. We like to leave the car what it is, but just refine it.
Yeah.
So a pretty cool story about this. We had this car in California earlier this year, in Costa Mesa, California, and I'm standing there, and Adam Carolla came up to me, and I was kind of like, kind of starstruck, and super cool dude, and he's like, that Impala, and I'm like, you're Adam Carolla, But I think I said something to him. He goes, that thing is just incredible. He goes, I don't even like Impalas, but that thing is just, and I'm like, you're the guy with girls on trampolines. But he was really cool. So it was kind of funny how he came up and of all the cars we had there, he fell in love with that one. So.
And the Groffs who own this car, when you ask me about what it's like in the car world, well, when I hang out with them, so Susan and I, we hang out, we go shopping, we go out to eat, we sightsee. It's like, and they treat our children, like their own grandchildren. So it's like I'm just hanging out with my grandma. Like, it's really a tight feeling, family feeling.
It's pretty cool. Some of these, not some of them, all the customers that we build cars for, most of them are successful guys that have large companies and whatnot, but most of them are all self-made, and it's really cool because they're the coolest, most down-to-earth people ever, and they just, they'd give the shirt off their back to help you out. And,
I can agree with that.
And sometimes we're like, well, that's a really expensive car. You get kind of the attitude of like, well, these guys have worked really hard, and that's what they like, and they just basically give us a car and let us just go with it, and they have complete trust. And usually they don't even care what color it is. So
absolutely,
it's pretty cool, the process. So
The cost ratio compared to us.
what's that?
Oh.
Yeah, I can imagine, you would imagine that as a kind of a clash of cultures a little bit. And I kind of heard her alluding to that a little bit, when you're interacting with customers that might have a little bit different situation, bankroll, to be able to do the things that they can do in the car world. I can attest to it too with some of the folks that I interact with here at the museum, but I'm always blown away with how wonderful they are and how much they want to give back to the car culture and invest back into it, which is really great, and allows you to hire young guys that are building their own hot rods, which is really cool.
It's it's the trickle down thing. It really is. So, and that's what's cool with like the guys that work for me is we come up with these crazy ideas. Sometimes they seem crazy, and then pretty soon you'll see they're kind of influencing those little parts and pieces on their car at home, and so everybody's always thinking, and what's a better way to improve this little part, or we could make this little bracket this way, or it's really a team effort, and that's I don't know, pretty blessed to have the guys I have. So.
I wondered about the creative process and how it works in your shop. Do you start working a panel kind of like a sculptor would, not really knowing how it's going to turn out, and then maybe it goes wrong, and you come in the next day and you're like, that's all crap, and you tear it off and start again? Or do you have a really defined mission going in?
Usually the cars have a pretty clear path from the get-go.
Yeah.
We all see eye to eye at the shop and pretty much like the same cars, so we know the path we want to go down. There's a lot of redoing, like you said. You come up with this good idea and you try to make this panel, and we're our own worst enemies because we overcomplicate everything. And some of that's the challenge. And I've said it before that sometimes I like the things that challenge me almost to the point where I want to give up on it, and then that's when you come through. And I think most of my guys at the shop are that way too. And that's where the passion comes through. It'd be so easy just to give up and be like, screw that. Let's just
Make it like the original.
just leave it alone. But sometimes we're not smart enough to leave it alone. So
It's kind of like talking to an artist sitting next to you, because that's exactly what artists talk about, kind of pushing through the barrier where you're about ready to give up, and then that's when the epiphany happens, or the wonderful mistake or whatever. Is this the same car that we were just looking at?
This is the bubble that we owned. It's all the metalwork is getting wrapped up on it right now, so it's not quite as extreme as the charcoal one we built, but it's still going to be a really nice car. There's the picture with Adam Carolla. So
cool.
That was in Columbus when we debuted that car. It's the memories of debuting a car are a lot of fun. It's usually these cars are 1.5, 2 years, sometimes 2.5, 3 year builds, and we see them in the shop all the time. And it's kind of weird how you kind of have this perceived thought in your head of what the car looks like, and then the second you get it away from the shop and get it out, you're like, holy cow, is that the same car? Because you look at it where maybe you're here to the toolbox from it, but then when you get it done, you can really back up and look at it from a distance, and it's amazing the personality it takes and how different it looks. That's the 40 early on right there, very early on, and then the 71 CUDA that we're finishing up right now. Tracy Weaver is doing the interior right now on the car. That car started back in like 2011. It changed hands a few years ago. Kent Matrenga now owns it. He's out of Southern California. He's the guy that owns the charcoal bubble top as well.
Wow.
Kent's a pretty cool guy. Him and his dad, they have quite the collection. They most humble, down-to-earth guys ever. And then he's real soft-spoken, and he goes, why don't you, next time you're out, come out and see all my cars and stuff. And, you walk in there, and you're like, well, there's where all those Boyd cars went. It's like, I thought they just fell off the earth, but they have a...
Carnegie in every single car.
Yeah, when we were there, Carnegie, my little son that was up here, got to sit in every one of his cars.
Oh, that's
pretend
great.
to drive it. And he didn't care. And then we went out to eat right after that, and we parked the car, and we get out, and there was lo and behold, a Cobra pulls up next to us, a little Cobra kit car or something, and Carnegie's going crazy, and he's like running over to it, and it's like, no, you can't sit in that one. So he was furious. But,
well, if Carnegie doesn't turn out to be a car guy, I don't know who will. I mean, holy cow.
He's a car guy.
That's awesome. I stopped on this picture just because, we all know 40 Fords, but boy, that 40 Ford looks completely different. And, tell me a little bit, I know we're kind of rewinding, talking about the 40 Ford again, but, the process of creating that hood, do you start with a stock hood and work work it out, or do you start from scratch?
That was completely built from scratch. That car right there I had an idea in my head of how I wanted that car to look. I wanted to wedge section that car and then wedge section the top as well. Everybody thought I was crazy, and even my friends, I remember they took me out for drinks one night, and they're like, "You can't do that," you know. And they were like, "Don't do that. You'll ruin that car." And I'm like, "No, I'm going to do it." So it was wedge section 1 inch in the front and 0 in the back. And when I laid out the wedge on the car, the wedge was 3/8 of an inch at the A-pillar. So I wedge chopped the top 3/8 of an inch which sounds like nothing. I mean, we're gaining basically nothing, but and at the B pillar, I think it was like 1/8 inch. So it was basically like a cutoff wheel and just brought the whole thing down. But you can't believe how much it changes that car and just softens it up and gives it that rake. Ron wanted the grill tipped back and kind of a rounded hood. He actually wanted it more, even rounder than that. And I'm like, well, we can't do that. So I built the grill. I cut each one of those grill bars out on the bandsaw. It was a painful process back, but that was all I had was a bandsaw and a welder, and just go to work. So
Wow.
yeah, I had like 6 weeks in that grill alone. So it was a lot of work,
Unbelievable.
but-
Is this the same garage that you work out of now, or is this your early location, then you moved?
Split entry home.
Split entry home.
Well,
Get
no,
out.
that was I was building the car in my split entry home, and then this was the shop that Ron told me to meet him at in Bennington, and that is the shop where we built the 40 in, and it's got like 9-foot ceilings, believe it or not. It looks
Wow.
taller in that photo than it really is, but that's where we built that Riddler car. So
That's cool. And there it is today. Where is that car now, Andy?
it's sitting in my shop all apart, actually.
All blown apart. We've been
Yeah.
begging him to bring it here. We
It's
want
gonna
to.
end
We
up
want
down here.
to dust it for him.
The car, we were left like with a month to assemble the car, and really it wasn't enough time. So the car went to Detroit. It was done enough to look like it was done. The headlights worked. The windows went up and down. It started. It went forward and backwards, and so that was about it. So, so there was some things we never had right on the car, and we're tearing it apart. Jim Carl's modeled the entire front drive on the flathead because it would never work correctly. It kept showing water pumps every like 100 miles, and it was just Ron had somebody build the motor, and they built this front drive assembly, and it was just kind of out of whack. So everything was in a bind, and we modeled it. It's all machined. It's just waiting to go together, and we're actually kind of going through the car, and we're going to put that car in the street. You're going to see that car driven hard. So that's the big thing now is the Riddler was really good for us, best thing that ever happened, but we want to build cars that work. They have to work. And that 71 CUDA, for example, is a car that I talked to Kent, who we were building it for, and he says, go ahead and do whatever you got to do. And I said, I want to wire and plumb the car in bare metal, and we're going to get at least 1,000 miles on the car in bare metal. So
Yeah.
last summer, that's what we did, and I mean, we tortured that car. But I would drive that car to California right now. It is completely done. It's the first car we've ever done where every single thing on the car works. Because we took our time and did it in bare metal, and that's how we'll do every build from here on out. It sounds like it's a lot more time to do that in bare metal, but when you body work and paint these things, and then you go back and you try to, we forgot to
Tiptoe around all the
we got
delicate stuff.
Put a hole in it here and stuff, and you really kind of roadblock yourself into corners, and they're just never the same. Whereas it's in bare metal, you can do whatever you want. Problems arise and just fix it. So. Yes,
This is a whole new subject, right? Like,
This is a whole new subject,
So
so.
I love this picture because not only does it take us into a new topic, but then there's this crazy guy on the flying Merkel or whatever the heck that is back there on the bike.
This was Bonneville, probably 2016 or something like that, maybe 17. That is, I don't know, that's a local guy. Probably, a lot of you probably know Jason Holland, and with saying that name, that you probably find that no surprise that he's back there. So he had this wonderful idea to do that. So there.
Get your attention.
It's actually a really cool photo.
Yeah, I
So-
love it. So, talking about cars that actually work, this is the epitome of that. I mean, bringing a car out to Bonneville. Tell us a little bit about, that's also with Ron. Ron had a desire to go out to Bonneville, so you built a car that's, again, like a piece of sculpture. And we've had this car at our museum, and people just love it. They call it kind of like the Batmobile. But tell us a little bit about that process, about, going out to Bonneville and the challenges, because that's completely different than going to a car show.
Yeah, it's this car, right after Detroit, Ron, something came up, and we were talking about Bonneville, and Ron goes, I want to do that. And Bob Thrask drew a drawing on the workbench of a 34 Chevy that didn't look like this, but Ron saw that drawing right then and there, and he's like, we got to build a Bonneville car. And which is cool, because when I was at Troy's, we built the Blowfish for George Poteet. And so we kind of already had the Bonneville bug in me. And so we decided, we're going to do a 34 Chevy. And it was never supposed to be this, it was never supposed to be stretched out or anything like this. It just kind of evolved into that. And you know how it is with racing, it started off, well, let's go 200 miles an hour. Well, then the next week it was like 250. Well, then it was like, well, if we're going to do 250, I got to go 300. And it's like, whoa, Ron, slow down. But we built this car. Everything on that car is scratch built. We started with a creek bed body. It was actually 2 bodies that we put back together, got it all fit and shaped, and then actually used that as a buck and just made a new body off that creek bed body. The nose is aluminum. The hood sides are aluminum. The hood top's aluminum. The car's 23 feet long. It actually looks longer than it is, but we took it out the first year wanting to go 100 miles an hour. I know that sounds crazy, but we had aero guys involved, and we just wanted to make sure the car went straight. Just because the computer says it's going to go straight, and the chassis geometry and everybody we had involved said it's going to work, until you actually get it on the salt and do it, you don't know. So it ran like 120 miles an hour without any trying, and then we took it back the next year, learned a bunch, obviously.
Yeah.
Went out the next year with a goal of going 200, and it ran 227 with all motor, no turbo, and the logs actually showed that it was in the 250 area, because they average between a mile. So we went out last year thinking that we were going to flirt in the 250, 270 area, and then racing can humble you real quick. So we thought we had a really good car, and we took it out there, and we had some pretty serious issues that one of those freak things that just never happens. We actually had an engine fire that took out the dry sump oil lines and actually took the fuel line out too. So just an absolute freak thing, but nothing got hurt other than the fuel line and the oil lines, and we got really lucky. So it was kind of a wake-up call though, because it's like
we're flirting with disaster, right?
Yeah. So
Car guy's building a rocket ship.
Yeah, like I said, we're going out this year. We're strapping a guy in a human missile. So that's this year we've been working on it since January. Well, I guess we left here in, was it February or March or something? I can't remember when it was, but we've had a guy on it every day since then, and we'll turn her loose this year and see what happens. So,
how much does that car weigh, Andy?
The car weighs just under 6,000 pounds.
Yeah.
There's 2 theories in Bonneville, either really light or really heavy. So we went with the really heavy because we didn't want to.
Don't want to go airborne.
Yeah, we didn't want a lawn dart. So this was on the dyno. I don't know if this video will play.
Do you want me to play it, Andy?
Yeah, if it can, yeah. The car, on this run, it made 1,400 horse at the rear wheels with 6 pounds of boost. It's an animal. Our theory was we'd kind of overkill it with the power and just build one motor. I don't think that was the one where it made 1,400 horse. But Bonneville's really cool because you're not building a piece to look good. You're building it to function. And there is a handful of cars out there that are pretty high-end, high-profile race cars. So it's fun to take that whole race car thing and kind of push the limits there. And then it either works or it doesn't. So
yeah, I could listen to the sound of that thing all day. That's great. What does it have for an engine, Andy?
It's
You
an
probably
LSX.
told me. LSX,
block,
yeah.
with a big 108 millimeter turbo. So like I said, it made 1,400 horse at the rear wheels, and that was a no boost. So it's pretty scary. It's got a lot left in it, but we don't need that much power. But again, our theory was overbuild it and kind of detune it and let her go. So.
Is Ron the only driver right now, or does he have a co-driver?
Ron's the driver. Eric Hansen is the backup driver. So Eric's had the car to 200 miles an hour as well.
I told him he wasn't allowed to drive.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to drive.
You're not allowed to strap in. You know,
The boss has spoken.
John McKeegan's here in the audience, who built an amazing streamliner as well, and his wife told him the same thing. You've got kids to feed. So, yeah. That
I'm
didn't,
not going to be a single mother again, but with 3 this time.
yeah, not good. So, yeah, just a few more pictures of the streamliner. Very cool.
This photo here was for Hot Rod magazine last year, and you know the optimum time is right at sundown to take the pictures. So you got about a 3-minute window there, and these hang glider guys came and kind of photobombed us. But it actually turned out to be a really, really cool photo. But yeah, there's Ron on the right there, or I guess on your guys' left.
That's cool. And you bring the whole gang out usually?
We take most of the guys. It's quite the process.
Yeah,
You
not
know,
cheap.
It's not cheap. at all.
Hotels and
Yeah.
food and the whole gang, yeah.
You're on the moon. It's, you know, you get pretty creative when you break down out there. So,
Yeah. There's the car in bare metal. Boy, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a John Jackson photo shoot long ago. That's what's cool. You can show these things in bare metal and show that they're not, you know, some cobbled together, stuck together, baling wire type deal. But
Oh, sure. Of course, then we move into the coupe, which is the car we talked about early on, you know, being influenced by the museum. But tell us a little bit about this car and where it's at today and kind of the
Yeah,
process.
It's this car we built for Ted and Colleen Hubbard, and Ted came to us first. The car was on a chassis. It was mostly built actually, and he said he wanted headers built. So we built some headers and knocked those out real quick. And he's like, "Well, why don't you do this?" So we did this, and pretty soon he's like, "You know what? Just build the car." So he came and he said, "I want the car to look like it was a high school kid's car where his dad had way too much money, and it has all this really rare speed equipment on it." So then that's when that header, it's like, oh, okay. So we took, and those stainless headers that we originally built are actually inside that exhaust manifold there, the kind of lake style headers, and those were all partly machined, partly fabricated, just keeping that finned idea through the whole car. You can see the rear end there. That was laying under the car when it was still on the table one evening. Eric and I were laying under it, and I said, "I got an idea." He goes, "Oh, no."
I think I have a picture of that rear end.
That rear end. He goes, "You want to do what?" I said, "Yeah, let's put fins on it." He goes, "That would be amazing, but I don't know how we're going to do it." So we had some bars laser cut, and I think we got like 3 bars into it, and we're like, "This is a terrible idea." You know, it's just like we have how many hours in welding each bar on. So, but we're kind of committed, so we kept on, and it actually looks really cool. So.
Love it. Are those Kinmonts, or are those the new Kinmonts?
Those are the new Alan Johnson.
Those are
brakes.
cool.
So,
And the Ardent heads. What was it like to build that engine, or who built that engine for you?
H&H built that motor. Ted actually had the motor built before we got involved with the car, so that was all there. We just kind of built around that. So he wanted that really cartoon stance jacked up in the back with a tall tire, and of course Carnegie's in it, and I think that was SEMA 2017. So Carnegie has not missed a SEMA yet. So
That's pretty cool.
His first year of life, he went to every cool car show.
Yeah, Carnegie's a car guy. He doesn't realize some of the cars he gets to sit in and the things he gets to do. So it's a lot of fun.
Was this car, the parts, looking at the wheels and some of the pieces that were machined, were they done the same way as the 40 Ford locally with companies here around Nebraska?
EVOD actually cut those wheels. We were at Bonneville, and I saw this little roadster that was running around there, and it had these rear wheels on it that had these little like spikes on the edge of the hoop. And I'm like, we got to do a wheel like that. So we got home and we started doing thumbnail sketches, and then I can't remember. I was Brian Stupsky. I called Brian Stupsky at Problem Child Customs. I'm like, hey, I want you to draw a wheel that's really bizarre. It's very Hallebrand inspired, but it has these little nubs on the edge of the hoop. So that's what he came up with, and Evod cut it. Those rear tires are the one-off cokers that they produced a very, very small run of. The rear tires are probably the only store-bought item on the car that
Is
we got
that
from
right?
you guys. So, otherwise, literally everything on that car was made from scratch. The frame, the body was reverse sectioned. If you study a Model A, they're real short from the belt line down. So we studied a 32 and decided to add 1.5 inches at the back of the car and 1 inch in the front. So we added metal to the car. And everybody always asks, well, how much was that car chopped? Well, I can't tell you really, because it was a thing where we reshaped a 32 5-window roof and set it on there. And it was a deal where we just kept clamping it and moving it down. And if I had to take a guess, it's around the 6-inch mark, but I have no idea, honestly. It was just more of a looks good type thing.
Wow.
Some of the details on that car that people don't notice is like the drip rails those were machined and they bolt on from the inside. Anybody that's ever done body and paint work on drip rails knows that that's like the worst part of a car to body work and paint. So we machined that as a separate piece, and it was all finished off the car and then bolted on. That car's got a lot of detail, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
Where did you find a 32 roof that somebody wanted to give up?
that was actually a brand new United Pacific roof.
Oh,
so
nice.
One of the very first ones.
That's cool.
And believe it or not, they almost fit right on there. We had to shrink the corners on the power hammer to bring it around, but it's almost a dead fit.
Wow. Like, when do you get your most creative energy? Is it like when you're laying in bed at night kind of thinking about the car? Is it early in the morning over a cup of coffee? I always wonder about that.
I think you say it best. It's like, are you ever never thinking about cars? I mean, it's all day long. And it's just like, you look at Model A's, and there's something I forgot there, is the tops of the doors and the tops of the windows. If you look at a Model A, they're as flat as this table.
Yeah.
Well, we took the crown of the roof and reshaped those. And it's just those little things that nobody ever notices, but it's when you really step back and see the proportions of a car, it's like, that really should follow that line there. And it's just little things like that. This was at Bonneville. Almost every year, we go to Reno, and then Bonneville falls that very next, kind of right in line with it. So I'll be coming back through Reno, and we always have a car with us, and we end up shooting it on the salt. And this is a cool photo. We're literally pushing the car maybe 1 mile an hour right here for 10 feet. But it's a really, the shutter speed and everything's really slow. So it's a really cool photo.
There's that rear end you were talking about.
Yeah, there's the rear end. It's really cool now that it's done. No,
And this is where the passion comes in. They were building this car just to make a nice car, and then Ted saw it and he goes, well, let's go for Detroit. And that was like 3 months away. So what the guys ended up doing is all 12 guys were on this car for 140 hours a week.
Wow.
Like, I didn't even know there was 140 hours in a week. And they wouldn't even eat. They would go and they would take shipping blankets, they put them on top of parts, so they don't scratch when they're storing them or whatever. They took piles of them and slept for like 20 minutes on the floor in the shop. And then they blacked the windows out, so they didn't know if it was night or day outside. And they literally wouldn't eat. I would make spaghetti dinners, like almost like a homeless shelter. And I'd just bring food in, and these dirty guys who haven't slept, they don't even go home and shower. Like, they eat, and then they go right back to work.
And that's where the passion comes through, because it's a perfect example here of, it's like, well, we got 2 days left before we got to put it in the trailer and head to Detroit. We could still do this and this and this. And it's like, again, we're our own worst enemy. But
And not every team works that way. So, that says a lot about you, I think, as a leader, that they would want to be there and want to do that. Obviously, they feel like the mission is very important, and they were after something bigger than themselves, which is pretty cool.
yeah, and I like to give all credit to my guys, because it takes one heck of a team to build these cars. I might be the guy that is sitting up here talking, but some of the other guys, they really should deserve more credit than they get. And I always try to make sure in every magazine thing, everybody's name, right down to my bookkeeper, is in the tech article and stuff, because that means a lot. And those guys, they put everything into this stuff. So this is kind of a cool photo. It's Battle of the Builders in 17. Troy's up there, Alan Johnson. Jeremy Miranda, I don't know, I can't see who that is with the red hat, and the Gerber boys, Roadster Shop, all good friends, all of us right there, and Troy Ladd. It's cool. They're all friends. We all want to win, something like that, but everybody's friends, and it's we draw inspiration off each other, and it's...
They don't talk smack in between, like the judging. Oh, do they really?
Oh, yeah, to each other. Yeah.
A good example is Randy Weaver, is that who it was? Like this car wasn't firing right for whatever reason in Reno. Well, Randy Weaver put probably 12 hours into fixing our car, what was in competition with his car. Like, that's the family industry.
That's cool.
It's a business, but everybody's friends, and it's really what the car world's all about. So
That's excellent. Hey, I know this guy.
yeah, this is I've been doing a lot of stuff with Wayne Carini here lately, and this was in Costa Mesa, California, and he loves this car. So it's actually touring around with him, and I'm touring around with him, going to Pebble Beach with the car here in a couple weeks, and it's fun. It's the people you meet, and
Well,
he's a really good guy.
He's a really nice guy. You know, I met him and talked to him a little bit at, I think it was the Amelia Island show, and he had mentioned that he'd been working with you. And, of course, Wayne and I have a mutual friend with the museum and a guy named Eric Zausner, but when he was talking about you, boy, he had a sparkle in his eye. He said, what a great guy. He just couldn't say enough good things about you, so I think that was pretty cool.
I let him drive that car on those fairgrounds over there, and he's probably the only other guy that really fits in that car. He's about 3 feet tall, so... Yeah, when I try to drive that thing, I need a chiropractor immediately. So,
Yeah, that tells the story right there.
But Ted Hubbard, he's about...
yeah, Ted Hubbard's about the same build as Wayne.
And he
So
custom built the car around the client.
That's
I have to
fun.
take the seat cushion out, and then I kind of fit, but it's. And this
Yeah.
was all ideas that, again, you throw these crazy ideas out, and it's like, what if the floor had this crazy Art Deco kind of crown molding shape to it, and then there was a rubber floor mat down in the pockets. So the entire inside of that car was modeled. Like I said, Jim Carls does a lot of our modeling, and there's where the passion takes over.
Yeah.
Because he'll see an idea, and he's like, yeah, that'd be cool. You know how long that's going to take, but let's do it. And then it just kind of evolves after that. So.
You and I are on different levels. I feel happy when I find an old 49 F1 steering box at a swap meet. Here, you just build one. That's obviously pretty cool.
Well, we're blessed to have the guys that just kind of let us do what we do. So
That's great. Just a few more pictures of that car. Boy, there's a good one from underneath. One thing I notice about your cars, we'll see on the Buick that you're building here, the underside of the car is just as interesting as the top. Hey, there's you guys riding in the car. That's cool. You did fit.
I do fit. I'm in pain right now, as you can't tell. But this is the 71 CUDA. This was probably 2 years ago. You can see most of the panels are all body worked or not body worked, but metal worked, and we actually use a lot of lead. You can see the lead in the gaps of the car. And this car, this is the first one where Paul, the Australian that I got, we literally metal worked everything, metal finished everything to this level, and we're pretty happy. There's actually less than 5 gallons of mud in that car, and
Wow.
that means the majority of that mud is in the engine bay.
Wow.
So the car is super straight, and it's fun when the customer will let you do that. The Craftsmanship, the hood's not finished there, but that's the less product that's on a car, the longer it's going to live. Mm-hmm. And Kent actually uses his car, or cars. Each car he has, he drives the wheels off of it. And like he said, the only time this car will see a trailer is when it's hauled to California to his place, and then after that, he will burn it up and down the highways. So
That's really cool.
yeah. He's the owner. That's Kent with the shorts and shirt on back there. Came in to drive it before we tore it apart for bodywork. Kent's the guy that owns the charcoal bubble top that we did the 62, and he drives the wheels off that car. That car's got like 5,000 miles on it already, and
Takes it to all the car shows and wins stuff.
he takes it literally everywhere. And he'll send me pictures, and he's got all his grandkids piled in the back seat, and it's like, that's pretty cool. So there's the car. There's Kent and his dad, Bob Matrenga. We were up at Charlie's. If you guys ever get a chance to see Charlie's shop, it's one of the most phenomenal shops you'll ever see. This is his dirty room where all the mudslinging happens, and you can see it's
It's crazy. I've been in
He's-
operating rooms dirtier than that.
He's an absolute freak.
You have to have a little OCD if you're with Andy or Charlie. That's the only way they make the perfection happen.
I have a funny story with Charlie. So when we were doing the 40, Eric and I went up there and lived with him for like a month as we were trying to get the car put back together enough to get it back home. And I had a golden retriever at the time. And Charlie loved that dog. And he's like, what are you going to do with Racer? I said, I don't know. Maybe my mom can watch him or something. And he's like, just bring Racer along. I'm like, you sure? And he's like, yeah, bring him along. So I take him up there. And you know how golden retrievers are. They shed like it's a... He had tumbleweeds of hair blowing around in it, rolling around in his shop, and he was so mad. He'll still call me and chew me out for that. And it's like, you told me to bring him, dude. Yeah, and then he mailed me some hair that was laying on his shop floor. And it's fun. So
That's good stuff. Now this car, this is still in your shop right now, isn't it, Andy?
this is still in my shop. This is a 60 Buick that we're building for Georgie Lycostas. He's out of Chicago. Another car that every panel was removed and literally metalworked and flattened out. Nobody knows what a 60 Buick looks like. I mean, they can identify one. But this car has been wedge sectioned. All the panels have been rearranged and cut up and moved around and stuff. We actually bought a stock 60 Buick, a real low-mile car. That's my wife's car. And when the car is done, we'll have both of them together. And you put them together, and it's crazy how different they are. But when you look at a 60 Buick, they look like they're running uphill in the front. So we wedge sectioned this thing, actually lengthened the nose just a hair. All the trim is machined out of brass. Something right there looks so simple, like the quarter trim that wraps around the little hockey stick piece or whatever you want to call it. Jim Carl's modeled all that, and it was like the most difficult. You cannot believe how much that little triangle shape twists and turns in that little short run. Everything we model, we have a cheap little 3D printer, so we 3D print everything, so we know exactly what the model is. And I think we burned through, I don't know how many rolls of plastic, and we printed every piece of that trim about 100 times. And that's the most difficult piece I think he's ever done, is what Jim said. But once it's all done, it really looks good. So.
And it's a cool car, just even in this state. Well, I saw it at the Grand National Roadster Show, and it was like Elvis had walked into the building. It had a crowd of people around it the whole time. It's great. I think we have a few more pictures showing all the handiwork. Just pretty cool.
That was when it was getting loaded up to go to Grand National. So, of course, it decided to snow.
Imagine
for
that,
10
yeah.
minutes, and then, yeah. Yeah, here's the bottom side of it. This was quite a while ago, actually. But everything is handmade. Everything you see there, the frame, the floor, all the exhaust pockets, everything's literally made from scratch. The car sits so low, nobody will probably ever see this. But just for instance, the rear end is completely scratch built. This car was going to be a Riddler car, and then about a year and a half ago, we decided to kind of steer away from that. But we're still sticking with that quality and the craftsmanship and the ideas behind it. Kind of approaching it now, and you'll see it with the finishing of the car, is kind of the idea of a GM concept car. Mm-hmm. You'll see it when the colors and everything come together, but the car is really out there. It really is. It's a 425 nail head. That motor actually made 600 horse on the dyno without the Pro Charger on it. So that's the crazy thing. You got this Chris Alston crazy contraption crank-mounted Pro Charger on the front of it, and then we've machined and made all the valve covers and the plenums, and you can see the exhaust flanges, the motor mounts. Everything's made from scratch there. So we're to the point where we're kind of building the intercooler right now, and all the inner fenders are probably about 90% done right now. But again, this is a car that is going to work, so we're just starting to wire and plumb it now, and then you guys might see a 60 Buick running around Omaha and Lincoln. So
That's cool.
But really neat car. There's Carnegie at SEMA. Yeah, it was kind of funny. All the press were taking pictures of him. So I wish I could get some of those pictures.
I know we've hit an hour, so I'm going to kind of zip through a few of these pictures, which show just kind of some of your other projects before we turn it over to the audience and ask some questions quick. But this is a good-looking car.
Yeah, this is a 32 three-window for Larry Dove. Larry and his son Sean own EVOD, They cut a lot of parts for us. Fortunate enough, they asked us to finish this car for them. So this car is in the bodywork stage right now. It's got a Keith Black Hemi in it, and that'll be a lot of fun to drive.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Of course, the CUDA again.
The CUDA, yep, the Bronco. I guess that's what's fun is, we don't really stick just to 32s or anything like that. It's all over the board, but we like to keep that same look and same influence. So it's a lot of fun to put that in different types of cars, whether it be 4x4 and or hot rods or muscle cars or what be it. That's a 53 pickup that we're building for John Harmon. He's out of Kentucky. That truck should be out early next year. It's kind of one of those that's been lingering around, but it's just a really simple, really clean, nice truck.
I know that guy.
This is the Mustang that we're finishing right now. It'll live in the Miami area. A little bit of a different look for us, but that's what makes it fun.
Yeah. You never get tired, right? 'Cause
Right.
there's that 32
That's that
again.
3-window again.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a hot rod. That's cool. The Buick rear
The
end.
Buick rear end, yep. Just some display boards for some of our show stuff. So
Boy, this is fun.
yeah, that's Howard Groff that owns the brown Impala. So
Looks like a happy guy. Of course, your trailers are amazing.
that was when we left to go get the 40 from Charlie Hutton. So it's fun, the people you meet. They're all really good guys. They really are.
I only get to pose with the cutout like
What's
that.
funny about this picture is Wayne is actually the one that took this picture of me with a cardboard cutout of him. So it's probably funnier to him and I because we had this crazy joke. But it's those are our cars. Me and my wife's cars. We like the big old land yachts.
That's cool.
60 Buick, 59 Pontiac wagon, 59 Olds. So
What's not to love about that? That's great.
We take that wagon everywhere.
yeah, we drive that wagon everywhere, literally everywhere. So.
Love it. Well, I think it's probably time to bring it to the audience. Does anyone have questions? Oh, I have my first customer.
So what do you see for the future of the street riding hobby? When I talk to other enthusiasts, they say it's dying because we're all getting old and we're not being replaced. But then when we go to shops like yours, you're busy and you're building really nice stuff. So what's your perspective?
That thought has been around for quite a while, but our clientele I've got a couple clientele that are like my age that we're building really high-end cars for, and I keep getting calls and stuff for that. So I think the next wave is coming. It's definitely we can see it moving into the late 50s, 60s, and 70s cars. We definitely see that. I don't get as many calls for the early 32s, 3s, and 4s as we used to, but I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just kind of the newer cars are taking over. So
Anybody else with questions? We must have did a good job, Andy. Oh, here we go.
I was going to bring him up.
No. Is there a car that got away?
A car that got away.
Something you wish you had back or you want to build?
I think the biggest problem with this is, we build a car, and then it's like, I got to have one of those. So, like my wife says, oh, I suppose you want a CUDA now. Well, yeah. So, funny story is Brian and I see each other about once every 2 years, and Brian probably never realized he had a lot of influence on me in the early days. I met Brian when I had an S10 with a V8 in it, and I think he had a cowl induction hood for sale in the newspaper or something, and that's how I met Brian, and we became friends, and Brian would come over, and one day he pops over. He had just bought a brand new 96 Impala SS. He's owned it 10 minutes, and we're out there ripping the springs out of it, and I think my mom was not very happy, but so it's good seeing Brian, and yeah, he's got a lot of influence, and that's what it's all about. So.
How many of the cars that you build and other builders like you actually go to individuals who drive them and show them, like today, the group that's out here in the parking lot, as opposed to collectors that have them in their showrooms and museums?
Most of our customers use their cars. Most of them have quite a few cars. Most of them have guys that take care of their cars. But when we build cars, I want them used. I don't really want to build a model anymore. They're cars after all. So, yeah, you know, it's there for the longest time. You know, the indoor car show stuff was kind of had a bad deal with it, where all those cars, you know, they didn't even have oil in them and stuff like that. Well, I think times are really changing. You still see a few cars like that, but nowadays you're seeing people enjoy their cars and use them. And with all the chassis that are being sold, like Roadster Shop and even Art Morrison and stuff like that, you can get these cars to ride and drive and handle like brand new cars. And that's what's fun. So the functionality thing is definitely where the whole industry is heading. And even with the new crate motors and stuff, you know, it's insane that you can have a 700 horse motor that you can buy for, like, I think that LT4 is what, 12, 13 grand?
Yeah.
And you have 700 horse, but it sits there and runs like a sewing machine. But if you tried to build that motor, you know, you'd have twice the money in it and just be fighting stuff all along. But so the drivability and it's all based on the parts. And that's what's cool with some of our customers is they've built a number of cars, so they get it, and they trust us. And you know, the simpler you can keep these cars, the better they're going to work. You know, like Kent said it best. I always have to ask if they want power window. He goes, "Why would I want power windows? My arms work just fine." So, but yeah, so it's functionality is a huge part of it. So we will not let a car go until I'm comfortable with that car, if it could drive to the owner's place, wherever that be, Florida or Ohio or, you know, Chicago or California. So.
Since you've been in business for yourself, have all of your jobs been completed? Has there been anybody that came in and said, okay, we spent enough money on it, I want to take it home and I'll bring it back in a couple of years? Has that happened?
For the most part, we've only had one car that we stopped on, and actually two cars. And yeah, you know, it's just sometimes the owner decides to go a different direction with it. And but for the most part, we've had really good luck with every car that we've turned out. From start to finish, we've done it. So, and we do a lot of cars. Excuse me. We'll do a lot of stuff where it's just updates. Maybe we'll build exhaust for it, or we'll, you know, build a fan shroud or something like that. So we do a lot of stuff where it's just simpler, get it in, get it out stuff. Not every one of them is this long, drawn out.
Somebody can't get something, they'll bring it to you, hey, Andy.
Yeah.
Can you do the steering for me on this car?
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of that stuff. So some of those are kind of more, this is going to sound terrible, but some of those are more fun because you're not staring at the car for 3 years. So
Other questions? Well, I think, Andy, on behalf of the museum and as someone I'm proud to call a friend, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure having you here, and we always welcome you back, obviously. And if any of you out there need projects done, he's a great guy to turn to. So,
well, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Speedway.
let's have a big hand for Andy.